Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new to corporate or you're looking to level up, this is the perfect place to learn the top 5 things that you really need to learn. I have around 5.5 years of work across various sectors such as petrochemical, banking and edtech. These are the 5 really crucial things and no one really talks about it when you get started in corporate. It's a really different labyrinth of maze that you need to go through before you actually step up your game in corporate. So let's dive right into it and let's get started. The first lesson is all about data. Once you enter the corporate world, your degree essentially, which we are typically so proud of, is no longer of any value. Beyond the interview, no one really cares about what your degree is, where you came from. It's all about how well you establish yourself. So when you're pitching new ideas, taking new initiatives, make sure that you have lots of data here and there thrown over, and it should have a storyline behind it. You build up your pitch basis data. You're fresh to corporate, no one really knows you, you have no reputation to go back to or fall back on. So make sure that your credibility is built on solid data points. Ask several layers of why. Essentially say, the first level could be, hey, why are the profits down? Once you say that, okay, certain portfolio product is selling less, again go back to why of that, and then say you understand the customer base has largely shifted because of which a particular product is not selling. Then you again ask another question, why has the customer base shifted? So these are like several whys that you need to layer in, and then you will eventually build your solution to the entire top line problem that you have at hand. Next, this particular data bit, I want you to read up a book called The McKinsey Way. It's super helpful. I cannot emphasize enough how helpful it is. It's essentially a book about how consultants work on a day-to-day basis and what it is that you require to be successful as a consultant. But it's very crucial that you take away 2 major understandings from that book. A is that you need to be fact-driven, especially at, say, the junior most level. You need to be fact-driven because you're probably talking to the CEO or someone really higher up. Even if it's your boss who's, say, 2-3 designations higher up to you, you need to come up with facts. So everything has to be very data-driven. Another part 2 of this data process is that once you have your data in place, it's very crucial that you represent it well. When I say represent, is that make use of graphs, chart, make it visually engaging. Try and see if you can ramp up your skills in PowerPoint and Excel. These 2 are going to be your best friends along with how data works. So make sure that you represent well. Even the smallest tasks that your manager gives you, make sure that you put it on an Excel or a presentation and do a detailed analysis of it and represent it well. So first thing is that make sure you have loads of data to work with and story is built up along those lines. And second thing is that you must learn how to represent that data correctly. A lot of us used to crib in our school days that, oh my god, there's so much to memorize in school and college. But you got to understand that possibly all these years of memorizing, understanding, interpretation is finally going to help you in your corporate life. So don't forget that you need to keep memorizing even in your corporate life. So once you are in charge of a portfolio in terms of work or revenue or cost or any particular factor that you're working with, remember that you need to memorize as well. You need to memorize your current numbers, you need to memorize your quarter-on-quarter numbers, you need to memorize your year-on-year numbers, you need to memorize trend lines, you possibly need to memorize who else is doing better or worse than you in the same organization from a different team. So you need to really have those numbers on your fingertips. The second thing that you absolutely need to remember is that KPI alignment is everything. You will be known as somebody who brings new projects to the table and gets it executed if you get this one thing right. So remember that every employee in the organization wants to put it as little as effort possible and get the maximum output, which means that he or she will prioritize what is going to serve their own purpose. So when you come up with a project with, say, fact check, everything is aligned, then you go to your team members or other teams to get it executed. You will face hurdles in the timelines that they give you, the sort of attention that they give your project, the sort of prioritization that they give you. You need to make sure that your project's KPIs are absolutely aligned with your colleague's KPI, which is the only way to get it up and running. It's an uphill task if you don't first speak to your colleague and understand in a subtle way what their KPIs are, because they will not initially tell you the same upfront. So make sure that you understand what their KPI is. Frame your project or sort of frame your project objectives, frame the end result of your project according to what the colleagues' KPIs are. Only then will you get the best response and they will be super enthusiastic to work. And you have to put in the most effort in it. If you have 5 teams that are to be involved in the project, make sure that all 5 teams' KPIs are addressed in it. So essentially, your project's KPI need to keep changing with everyone that you approach. It's going to be truly personalized, and that makes a huge effect on making sure that your project is on top priority and everybody's pushing it ahead. The third thing, a very critical motto that you should follow in your corporate life, and I suggest that you underline it right this moment, is that track it or it didn't happen. So essentially what I'm saying is that any task that you get, you need to be able to track it. So to sort of understand this and align the tracking bit, we need to understand that the basic objective of a business is to generate profits. So profit equal to revenue minus cost. So essentially your role needs to be impacting any of the 3, one or more. So essentially you would be working on the task of increasing profits, which could ideally be looking at increasing revenue, reducing costs, or keeping costs constant, increasing revenue, or keeping revenue constant and decreasing costs. Either way, you should be eventually making an impact on the profit of your organization in terms of revenue or costs. If your manager assigns you a task which is not impacting any of these 3, you need to think twice. Not just once, twice, thrice. I suggest think it over many times and go back to your manager and ask him or her how will it help the organization with this task. Because if you cannot show an impact with your task, it will not lead to your personal growth. I suggest whenever you take up a task, look at this quadrant. The way I form it is that on the y-axis you have your revenue, cost, or your sort of impact metrics that you have put in place, and the y-axis would be the time. So essentially, in any case, if it's high revenue impact and high time taking, it's okay, take it up. Take your time, think through, but take it up. If it's low time taking and high impact on revenue, immediately you should be able to complete it as quickly as possible and give the best outputs, because that is how you're going to make a very quick impact. On the bottom level, there are 2 quadrants in which the revenue impact is low, but your time is less and time is more. So in case the time taken is less, but the revenue impact is also less, try and delegate it to some other team or to your team member, but try and work something out for it, because it's doable and it's going to take less of your time. But the last one, in which the time is also extremely high, the revenue is also very low, no, I don't think you should be taking that at all. Eliminate the task. Try and tell your manager that no, I won't do it, I don't think it's impactful. If you're really put into a corner with regard to it, allocate only 20% of your time to it. Only 20%, not more than that. If unfortunately you are stuck in a role which is the last quadrant, time taken is very high but revenue impact is very low, I suggest that you change your job or change your role, because growth would seem very limited in that role. So essentially, coming to the first point of this topic is that tracking is so important. So when you track the metrics that you are supposed to look at, either the top line, the bottom line, or the cost optimization, over time you realize, oh my god, I've made such a huge difference to the organization, and after 365 days you can actually go up to your manager and ask for that well-deserved hike. The 4th point is that don't be humble. Showcase your work. We've all been taught from school that be humble, humility is the way to go. But honestly, corporate does not appreciate introverts, nor do they appreciate anybody being humble. So essentially, you need to have a methodical way of trying to showcase your numbers. First, understand what your L1 or your L2 managers really want to see from you. So the metrics should be aligned with them. And then build a dashboard through which you can regularly update them. It could be via Google Sheets, anything live like Tableau. It could be a static table that you keep sending them with updated numbers every 2 days, every 5 days, anything. But it needs to keep telling your managers and the rest of the organization that you're making an impact. And you need to be consistent in sending these updates. It cannot be once in 2 months, once in 45 days, or with no expected frequency. So for example, your boss would be looking forward to your update, say every Friday. That way he'll be happy to see your update, and even if it's not going in the right direction, you will immediately know that you would have to course correct. The last one is more of a personal favorite, and believe me, it builds up over time. You will not see the result in an instance, but the last one is my favorite. It's daily learning. Daily learning is absolutely non-negotiable. It's going to build up with time, which means that I'm sure all of us have seen the chart in which we give 1% extra every day, and by the end of the year, it becomes 37 times more. But if you keep giving 99% of your efforts, it goes down to 0.03. So make sure that you learn. It's going to help you in every way possible. It could be something as simple as an Excel shortcut which you can implement later in your work, or it could be just reading a news article about the macro scenario of the industry that you're currently working for. Believe me, it will all keep adding up, and you can have great conversation with folks in your organization, with your leaders, folks who are 10-15 years more experienced than you. If you are more aware of what's happening around, if you know better things, of course, the Excel work will help with your daily productivity, but the more you read about the world, the macro situation, micro situation, consulting papers, it will help you to interact with leaders. So this is a practice I would suggest that you start right now, so that 5-10 years from now you would have amassed a great amount of knowledge. Those are the 5 critical lessons that I have learned in my almost 6 years of work experience. I hope that was super helpful. So let's just go over them once more. Number 1, stay data driven. Number 2, align with KPIs. Number 3, track your work. Number 4, showcase your achievement. Number 5, never stop learning. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and press the button for notifications.